Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Land Use Committee of the City of Newton. Present at the beginning of the meeting from the committee, I'm the chair, Rick Lipoff. We also have in the chamber Maria Greenberg and Tariq Lucas, and at home we have Chris Markowitz on Zoom, and we also have Andrea Downs and Andrea Kelly, the vice chair. From the law department, we have Jonah Temple, and from the planning department, we have Elisa Sandoval and Kat Kemet, and I see Joe Iadonisi. I'll figure out how to pronounce his last name sometime soon. And I think that's it, okay? First item of the night, 328-23. This is Green Real Estate, West Newton LLC. Request to amend special permit 6720 to allow medical marijuana treatment center at 1089 Washington Street. We have a letter from their representative asking to withdraw without prejudice. So this is pretty simple. We'll vote. All in favor say aye.
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 That is unanimous. Thank you very much.
And you have Councilor Bowman and Councilor Lucas dialing in.
Councilor Lucas is in the chamber, and if Councilor Bowman is here, great. Welcome, Councilor Bowman. Okay, 333-23, Linda Fingera, request to extend a non-conforming two-family dwelling at 27-29 Kilburn Road. Ms. Kemet, can you give planning's report, please?
Yes, hopefully everyone can hear me and see my screen. Let me know if not.
Yes.
This is great. This is petition number 333-23, a special permit for 27-29 Kilburn Road. The petitioner proposes to enclose two existing open porches at the rear of the dwelling, one on each of the first and second floor. The project requires a special permit because the two-family dwelling is located in the SR3 zoning district where that use is not allowed by right. Because of this, the proposed modifications will require special permit relief to alter and extend the non-conforming two-family use. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site in SR3 is an appropriate location for the additions that will alter and extend the non-conforming use. If the proposed additions that will alter and extend the use will adversely affect the neighborhood. If the proposed additions will create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. If access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. And if the proposed extension of the non-conforming two-family use will be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming residential use is to the neighborhood. The property is north of the village center and west to the west side of Kilburn Road, opposite the intersection with Southgate Park. The surrounding neighborhood is zoned primarily SR3, single residence 3, and occupied by single and two-family dwellings. One parcel, the Wellington Playground, across Kilburn Road to the southeast is zoned for public use, but otherwise it's primarily residential. The site consists of two parcels. The front parcel closer to Kilburn Road is 6,351 square feet and is improved with the two-family dwelling, which was constructed circa 1930. The rear parcel is vacant and is about 2,200 square feet in size. The use of the dwelling is non-conforming because two families are not allowed by right in the district. The site is fairly flat and has vehicular access via a curb cut leading to a paved driveway on the left side of the dwelling and a detached two-car garage behind the house. If we're applying MR1 new lot standards, which is the most readily applicable in this instance, since the use is not allowed by right in this district, the structure would have a non-conforming lot size of 8,551 square feet, where 10,000 square feet is required. The frontage would be non-conforming at 60 feet, where a minimum of 80 feet is required. The front setback would also be non-conforming at 22.3 feet, where 30 feet is required. The maximum FAR, which is floor area ratio, for a two-family dwelling in the MR1 district is 0.55. The way the FAR is calculated, this parcel, as it is today, would have an FAR of 0.47, so that would be allowed. The plan is to convert the rear porches to living space, which would further extend and alter the non-conforming use, so that aspect requires relief. As proposed, the work would be limited to the existing footprint of the dwelling. So all of the current setbacks, building height, lot coverage, open space, number of stories, all of that would remain the same as they are now under the current conditions. By enclosing the two rear porches, it would add 81 square feet of floor area on each floor for a total of 162 square feet added. So that will increase the FAR to 0.50, requiring no additional relief because up to 0.55 would be allowed by right. So overall, the department is not concerned with the proposed alteration and extension of the non-conforming two-family use. The dwelling has been used as a two-family since 1930, so it's been in place for quite some time. The proposed work is limited to the existing footprint of the building, so it won't increase the paving on the site, and the porches will be enclosed at the rear of the property, so they won't be visible from the street, which will mitigate the impact to abutters. That's all I have for that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is the petitioner here, and would they like to say anything, fill in the blanks for what has already been presented? Pretty straightforward. Go ahead. Maurice?
Yeah, so basically, there is nothing to be added.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this item? If you're on Zoom, raise your hand. Your little virtual hand. I don't see anybody. We'll take it into the council. Councillor Kelly.
If there is no other comment or when there's no more comment, I would be happy to make a motion to close the public hearing and make a motion to approve.
Excellent. Any other councillors wish to say anything? Pretty straightforward. We have a motion from Councillor Kelly to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve. Ms. Kemick, can we look at a council order?
Yes. So for findings, we have 1, the proposed additions that will alter and extend the non-conforming two-family use will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use is to the neighborhood, because the work proposed will be limited to the existing footprint of the building. 2, the site is an appropriate location for the additions that will alter and extend the non-conforming two-family use, because there are other non-conforming two-family dwellings in the neighborhood of comparable size and massing. 3, the proposed additions that will alter and extend the non-conforming two-family use will not adversely affect the neighborhood, because the additional living space added is less than 200 square feet and will not be visible from the street. 4, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, because all parking will be provided on site and the access to the site is not changing. And 5, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. And conditions are the standard plan referencing building permit and occupancy conditions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We have a motion to approve. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Councillor Bowman?
Aye.
Councillor Downs?
Aye.
Councillor Greenberg?
Aye.
Councillor Kelly?
Aye.
Councillor Rado? Councillor Lipoff?
Aye.
Councillor Lucas?
Aye.
Councillor Markowitz?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Good luck with your project. Next item, 336-23. John LaDoit requests to further extend a non-conforming front setback and non-conforming lot coverage at 62 Maple Street in Newton Corner. Ms. Kemet, please give us the report.
Yes. So this is petition number 336-23, a special permit for 62 Maple Street. The petition proposes to construct a covered porch at the front entry of the dwelling. This would further extend the non-conforming front setback and non-conforming lot coverage, which require special permit relief. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site is an appropriate location for the addition that will further extend the non-conforming front setback and lot coverage, if the proposed addition will adversely affect the neighborhood, if the proposed addition will create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved, and if the proposed addition, which will further extend the non-conforming front setback and lot coverage, will be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood. The site is located in Newton Corner in a residential area. The Watertown line also cuts through the northwest corner of this site, but the rest of the site is in Newton. Abutters include Nonantum Road in the rear, a residence in Watertown to the west, a 2-family dwelling to the east, and single, 2, and multifamily dwellings across the street to the south. The site has 2 sheds, one on the left side, one at the rear, and a rear deck. And the parcel and surrounding area is zoned MR2 with some public use north of the site. This is the existing site plan, which also shows the proposed porch at the front. It consists of a 4,765 square foot lot improved with a single family dwelling. The existing dwelling has several nonconformities. That includes the lot size, which is 4,765 square feet, where 7,000 is required, a frontage of 53 feet, where 70 feet is needed, a front setback of 4.9 feet, where 25 feet is required, a side setback of 1.4 feet, where 7.5 feet is required, and the maximum lot coverage is 33.9 feet, where 33.9%, where 30% is the maximum allowed. The petitioner is proposing to construct a covered porch at the front entry. This would further extend the non-conforming front setback and lot coverage, which requires a special permit. The plan also indicates that the existing concrete walkway will be extended to meet the front of the new porch. So the existing elevation is on the left, proposed elevation is on the right. The existing dwelling already has a non-conforming front setback of 4.9 feet, where 25 feet is required. With the proposed new porch, that front setback would be reduced to less than a foot, so it will be 0.8 feet. The addition would also increase the lot coverage on the site from 33.9% to 35.8%, where a maximum of 30% is allowed. So that amounts to an increase from 1,616 square feet of lot coverage to 1,708 square feet. So that's an increase of 92 feet. Open space will decrease from 66.5% to 63.8%. Overall, the planning department isn't concerned with the petition, which would further extend the non-conforming front setback and lot coverage. The property was constructed in 1915, so that predates the required 25-foot front setback. That's pretty typical of homes in this area. Many of them were constructed within that front setback because it was prior to those zoning requirements. Additionally, the porch is pretty modest in size at only 92 square feet, and it's likely to have a minimal impact on the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Name and address?
There you go. There. Okay. Yes, Joseph Luna, Luna Design Group. We are the project architects representing our client, John A. Ladoit. The summary covers everything. I just want to add a couple of points. My client is visually impaired, so the reason why the porch has to have the rails is just for obviously safety and tactile reasons. And then my client has been very diligent about contacting the abutters. Before we get to the public comment section, we do have 14 letters of support we'd like to submit to the board and have read into the public record. It is a standard letter. You can just read it off once and then just read off the names. But otherwise, I have nothing else to add to the project. It's very comprehensive in their.
Great, thank you. Anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this? Anybody? On Zoom? Here? No? Okay, we'll take it into the council. Any questions? Councilor Greenberg.
Oh, thank you. This is my ward, and this is a lovely project, and I find no issues with it whatsoever. So when you're ready, I'll close the public hearing and move for approval.
Okay, councilors, is there anybody else that wants to speak before we do that? I see none. We have a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? It is closed. We have a motion to approve. Can we take a look at a council order, Ms. Kemet?
Yes, so for findings, 1, the proposed addition that will further extend the non-conforming front setback and non-conforming lot coverage is an appropriate location because it is located in the front of the dwelling, away from the wetland buffer area on the site. Additionally, the existing dwelling was constructed in 1915 and predates the required 25-foot setback. 2, the proposed addition that will further extend the non-conforming front setback and lot coverage will not adversely affect the neighborhood because it is small and in a similar scale to other nearby residences. 3, the proposed addition that will further extend the non-conforming front setback and lot coverage will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because the driveway location and orientation is being maintained. 4, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. And 5, the proposed alterations of the non-conforming structure are not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure because the addition totals less than 100 square feet. And for conditions, plan referencing, and standard building permit and occupancy conditions.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion to approve. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Councilor Bowman?
Aye.
Councilor Downs?
Aye.
Councilor Greenberg?
Aye.
Councilor Kelly?
Aye.
Councilor Laredo? Councilor Lipoff?
Aye.
Councilor Lucas?
Aye.
Councilor Markowitz?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, good luck. Next item is 337-23, Traloc Killeen. Please give me the correct pronunciation. Request to... Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Chairman, you can probably call him Trey Killeen.
What'd you say?
Trey Killeen, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I like to address people properly. It's not always evident at the first try. Request to decrease non-conforming open space at 35-37 Williams Street. Ms. Kemet, again, you're very busy tonight.
Yes, hopefully you won't get tired of hearing my voice tonight. Okay, let me
Never.
share my screen here. Okay, so this is petition 337-23, a special permit for 35-37 Williams Street. The petitioner is proposing to legalize an extension of non-conforming reduced open space on the site. Prior to the purchase of the property in 2018, the rear of the property had been paved, and the current owners repaved it sometime after that. The owners were issued a violation notice from the Inspectional Services Department from the city, which noted that the site failed to meet the minimum open space requirement, which is 50%. While the exact percentage of open space prior to that repaving isn't clear, the Commissioner of ISD determined that the open space was already non-conforming and the repaving of the property does result in an open space of 20.3%, requiring a special permit. So no changes are proposed to the site in this petition, but if approved, the petition will legitimize the existing conditions where the rear of the dwelling is paved. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site is an appropriate location for the proposed project with reduced open space. If the proposed project that requires relief to allow reduced open space will adversely affect the neighborhood. If the proposed project that requires relief to allow reduced open space will create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. The site is located on William Street in a predominantly residential area. The northwest corner of the site is located in Watertown, which is why it's sort of cut off like that. The abutters are residential with single and two family dwellings, and the site and surrounding parcels are zoned multi-residence too. This is the existing site plan. The property consists of a 3,906 square foot lot with a pre-existing non-conforming two-family dwelling. Existing non-conformities on the site include a lot size of 3,906 square feet where 10,000 square feet is required, frontage of 52 feet where 80 feet is required, front setback of 9.8 feet where 25 feet is required, a side setback on the east side of 2.9 feet where 7.5 feet is required, lot area per unit of 1,953 square feet where 3,000 square feet is required, lot coverage of 37.8 feet where up to 30% is allowed, and open space proposed at 20.3% where a minimum of 50% is required. So while the planning department emphasizes the importance of compliance with open space and lot coverage standards, staff are generally not concerned with this request to legalize the reduced open space on the site, in part due to the many nonconformities that already exist on the site. It's undersized at under 4,000 square feet. The building ends up taking up approximately 27% of the lot, so there are some constraints there. On-street parking is prohibited on this side of William Street, so having this additional parking allows the petitioner to accommodate parking on the site and to provide access to the parking. And if approved, the petition will not add any new impervious surface that doesn't already exist. It'll simply legitimize the current conditions of the site that have been in place for some time. That is all I have for now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kemet. Mr. Schwartzer, is this your petition, I see?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. So for the record, my name is Franklin Schwartzer. I'm an attorney at the law firm Schlesinger and Bookbinder, 1200 Walnut Street in New Highlands. And I'm here on behalf of Petitioner Frank Wayne, who's trustee of the Frank Wayne Revocable Living Trust, which owns the property. Ms. Kemet really did a very good job describing the history of this and sort of the challenge that we face that's brought us here tonight. I think what's particularly frustrating from our standpoint is if our contractor had just pulled the permit in the first place, we'd probably have discovered that the open space hadn't really changed at all. But he didn't. We got a violation, and we had to try to figure, reverse engineer what had been at the site. And through consultation with ISD, we all agree that it was never even remotely close to the open space requirement of 50%. It was always substantially non-conforming to open space. But we couldn't prove that there hadn't been some decrease with the repaving in the back. The site's always been paved. It had become overgrown. This work was done. And now we're in the position of having to deal with the violation and getting it legalized. I will say, I know it's frustrating for our standpoint. I'm sure it's frustrating for all of you whenever you have to deal with something that's a violation. It's always better to come in requesting permission than forgiveness. I will say I had an opportunity to talk to the Ward 1 counselor. I think there was a recommendation that there be a contribution to the tree fund. My client is completely amenable to that. And we thought we tried to end at the number of $2,000 as being reasonable as a additional penalty. And in John Dagling's engineering report, he also talked about doing a voluntary bit of crushed stone along the perimeter just to help with drainage. I would note we haven't had any complaints about that, but absolutely willing to do that as well. And again, we're just here to legalize it and get it cleaned up.
Okay, thank you. So this area has been paved for years. It wasn't that you guys just did something. You repaved an area that was exactly there before, and because of this, you have realized that it never was in conformance, right?
That's correct. I think the challenging part of this is because it's on the statutory repair of the prior owner, areas that have broken have begun to get a little grassy in areas. So then it's a question of, okay, well, I'm playing, aerial intelligence officer looking down here and going, okay, well, is that grass or not? The whole area based off of affidavits we have from the neighbors was that area was paved.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, so anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this? Anybody on Zoom? I don't see. We'll take it into the council. Any questions? Any questions? Any comments? Councilor Greenberg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with planning's analysis of this project. It's unfortunate, but I understand how it happened. And I thank the petitioner for the contribution to the tree fund and would appreciate if the gravel crushed stone was put as engineering had recommended. Thank you. Close the public hearing when ready and move approval.
Okay, any other councilors before we close the public hearing want to comment or ask any questions? I don't see any. Motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. The public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve. Can we look at a council order? And will we be adding to the conditions a $2,000 donation to the tree fund, as well as the crushed stone at the front of the property? I would defer to Mr. Schwartzer or somebody who knows where that exactly is.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think what John Dangling is, he did a very quick schematic diagram. I think what might be useful is just a voluntary drainage measure that meets with the approval of the engineering department. I think that way we can show it to John. As long as John's happy with it, we'll do it.
Okay, Ms. Kemet and Mr. Temple will make sure that gets in there. Take us through.
Sure. So for findings, one, the site is an appropriate location for the proposed project with reduced open space because most of the paving is located at the rear of the dwelling and has a minimal impact from the street. Two, the project that requires relief to allow reduced open space will not adversely affect the neighborhood because no additional impervious space will be added beyond what currently exists. In replacing the broken asphalt that was previously on the site, the repaved area is an improvement in terms of safety and visual impact to the neighbors as well. Three, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because all parking will be provided on site and access to the site is not changing. And four, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. For conditions, I had plan referencing standard building permit and occupancy conditions. It sounds like we probably don't need to add anything about the crushed gravel necessarily, but we may want to add a condition about the contribution to the tree fund.
Yes, we want to add that condition, I would think. Okay.
Sure, and it was $2,000.
$2,000, and then some reference to some crushed stone for drainage per the engineering department's recommendation, something to that effect. Okay. All right. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bowman?
Aye.
Counselor Downs?
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg?
Aye.
Counselor Kelly?
Aye.
Counselor Laredo? Counselor Lipoff?
Aye.
Counselor Lucas?
Aye.
Counselor Markowitz?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Okay, good luck. 335-23, St. John's Episcopal Church. Request to allow for-profit educational use, non-profit educational uses requiring a parking waiver, agricultural use, and to waive 12 parking stalls at 297 Lowell Ave. Ms. Kemet. Okay, we can see you, but we can't hear you.
Oh, I haven't spoken yet. Sorry. We're moving through fast. Okay. So this is petition 335-23, a special permit for 297 Lowell Avenue. The petitioner is seeking to legitimize the current uses on the site as well as allow for future educational uses. This petition is before the committee to legitimize the existing educational uses on the site, allow for future educational uses, allow an agricultural use on less than 3 acres, and to further extend the non-conforming parking on the site by waiving 12 required parking stalls. In reviewing this request, the council should consider if the site in SR2 is an appropriate location for the proposed uses, if the requested parking waivers will adversely affect the neighborhood, if the requested parking waivers will create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved, and if literal compliance with the required amount of parking is impracticable due to the nature of the use or the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot. The property is located on a corner lot in Newtonville at the intersection of Otis Street and Lowell Ave. The surrounding neighborhood is mostly residential with a mix of single and two-family dwellings, with the notable exception of Newton North High School, which is quite close to the site. The majority of the neighborhood is zoned single residence 2, SR2, with several parcels zoned multi-residence 1 and the school zoned for public use. The Newtonville commuter rail station and other public transit connections are located close by in Newtonville. The property consists of a 44,854 square foot lot. The church has frontage on both Lowell and on Otis. The church building itself was constructed circa 1893, and the church use on the site and nursery use has been in place in the church for many years. There's a hedge that runs along the corner where the two streets meet, and there are entrances to the building on each frontage. There are trees located along the perimeter of the site, and the site slopes from a low along Lowell Ave to a high at the rear of the site along Otis Street. There is no parking on the site, making the parking facilities legally non-conforming because the building was constructed in the 1800s prior to parking requirements for this use. And I believe for any use. The petitioner seeks to legitimize the existing uses on the site and allow for future for-profit and non-profit educational uses. There are a number of uses on the site in addition to the church and the nursery use as well. And through this petition, they are seeking to legitimize these and to allow general educational uses without specifying tenants at this time, and to allow for greater flexibility when leasing to those educational tenants. So special permit relief is required to allow nonprofit educational uses requiring a parking waiver and for-profit educational uses in this district. So allowing the use generally in this building would lower a barrier that currently exists for educational tenants to occupy the space. No new structures or parking is proposed in this petition, so through the relief they would get here, it would legitimize these current uses, which include the church, so that includes religious services and choir practice, prayer groups, things like that. The nursery school, which has been in place for many years, and some of the newer tenants, which include the Newton Theater Company, meditation classes, a support group, a summer camp, a small pediatric practice, the Red Fire Farms Community Farm Co-op, which is where a CSA fresh produce distribution site. There is no agricultural work, like tilling the land or planting of crops. It's just sort of a distribution site. It does require relief as an agricultural use because there are not 3 acres, which is required for agricultural uses, but because there is no really intensive use of the land in that way, the department is not concerned about the smaller amount of space for the agricultural use. And Daisy Scouts. The parking requirement for the religious use and nursery use, which predates the zoning requirement for that parking, is 87 stalls. Because the property has no on-site parking currently and none is required, and none is proposed, the required parking for the site is legally non-conforming in its current state. To legitimize these additional uses on the site, an additional parking waiver of 12 stalls is required to accommodate those uses. According to the petitioner, peak parking demand for the site is during Sunday services when there's approximately 20 cars that are in the area. On-street parking is available along the frontage on Otis Street and Lowell Ave, which the petitioner says is typically more than enough to meet this demand. If there is need for an alternative to driving, there's also public transit available nearby. So should the petition be approved, the planning department encourages the petitioner to stagger schedules when possible for the educational uses to minimize any potential parking conflicts and overlapping pickup and drop-off times. Overall, the department is not concerned with the proposed educational use, the agricultural use, and the parking waiver of 12 stalls. This petition will largely serve to legitimize what's already happening on the site while allowing flexibility for future nonprofit and for-profit educational tenants. The zoning ordinance doesn't really have the ability to distinguish between uses that operate on the same site at different times, so it's sort of always operating under the assumption that the peak demand is happening on the site, when in practice that is not how the site really works, and the different uses are scattered throughout the week, throughout the day, in such a way that peak parking demand is pretty rare on the site. So because of that, the city is not concerned with the parking waiver, and the site has operated for many years without on-site parking. So the church has hosted its religious and nursery uses on the site without that parking for years, and there is 2-hour parking available for those that need it. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Ms. Kemet, the church has all of these uses. They've been using them. This is just to validate how they've been using the property already, to legalize its use and ask for these 12 spaces. Is that correct?
Yes, and also to allow for, in the future, the flexibility for the educational tenants, but otherwise, all of the relief is reflective of the current uses on the site.
Great. Thank you very much. Good evening, sir. State your name and address.
My name is Tim Strayer. My address is 80 Adena Road in West Newton. I'm an officer at St. John's Church, and Ms. Kemet basically said everything I'm about to say right now, but I'll say it anyway. We're a small church at the corner of Lowell and Otis with a sanctuary and a parish hall that we use for our services and religious education. For many years, we have had a strong and successful relationship with the Bowen Cooperative Nursery School, who use our classrooms in our parish hall. We have also opened our spaces to a variety of groups in the larger community who need space to meet. Since we have this space available, and especially since that space is available evenings and during the week, these groups range from support groups to theater experiences to meditation meetings to Daisy Scouts. We are also happy to serve as a distribution point for a local farm co-op. Our church uses on-street parking, and the frontage on both Otis and Lowell have long been sufficient for these needs. The use of the building for our services and for hosting our outside groups is specifically moderated to make sure that the groups have little or no overlap. and therefore do not stress the on-street parking during along our frontage. We feel that providing meeting space is an important part of our presence in the community. And consequently, we're eager to ensure that we're in full compliance with this city code and regulations. And we're grateful for the planning department for working with us in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this? Councilor Lucas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What? I'm sorry.
I said let's bring it into the council.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, I missed that last part. So yeah, I'm perfectly okay with this special permit request. I agree with planning's analysis about this project, and as Ms. Kemet said earlier, there is ample parking in the Austin Street parking lot, just two blocks away, and there is on-street parking as well. So this is a no-brainer if you ask me, and when ready, I'll close the public hearing and move for approval.
Okay. Councilor Downs.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to chime in on this. I think it's a totally reasonable thing to allow people to continue doing what they've been doing. And I think it's also essential if we want our churches to continue to, our religious institutions to continue as such, to allow them to rent out space that makes sense for them and for the neighborhood. So I will be supporting this.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing from Councilor Lucas. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve by Councilor Lucas. Let's take a look at a council order. Ms. Kemet?
Yes, so for findings, we have 1, the site is an appropriate location for the proposed educational uses, agricultural use, and 12-stall parking waiver, because the site has historically accommodated a mix of complementary uses without on-site parking. The uses proposed mostly operate out of the site at different times, resulting in a lesser parking demand than the ordinance requires. 2, the proposed uses and parking waiver will not adversely affect the neighborhood because peak traffic demand will not be negatively affected. 3, there will not be a nuisance to vehicles or pedestrians because the existing conditions of the site will be maintained. 4, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. And 5, a waiver of 12 parking stalls is in the public interest because constructing additional parking stalls would require an increase in impervious paving on the site, and the street parking is available. And for conditions, standard plan referencing building permit and occupancy conditions.
Excellent. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Bowman?
Aye.
Councilor Downs?
Aye.
Councilor Greenberg?
Aye.
Councilor Kelly?
Aye.
Councilor Laredo? Councilor Lipoff?
Aye.
Councilor Lucas?
Aye.
Councilor Markowitz?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. All right, next item, 240-23, 290 Watertown Street LLC. We held this back in August and really didn't do work on it. Request to allow ground floor residential use to exceed by right height and stories and a parking waiver at 290 Watertown Street. Ms. Sandoval, would you like to give your report for planning?
Yes, just hold on a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. This is petition number 240-23, site plan approval and special permit request at 290 Watertown Street. The petitioner is proposing to demolish an existing 2-story, 2-family residence and construct a 3-story, 4-unit residential development. The project requires special permit relief to allow ground floor residential in the business use 1 zone, to allow 3 stories, and to allow a building height over 24 feet in height. Just a little bit of background, this was a petition that was held from an August 2023 Land Use Committee hearing. The project has been revised as a result of neighborhood discussions, and it's been slightly reduced. The overall size has been reduced, and the number of units has been reduced from 5 units to 4 units, and it also now includes a carport with a green roof. The criteria to consider when reviewing this request is the site is an appropriate location for the proposed 4-unit, 3-story residential development with ground level parking. The proposed 4-unit, 3-story residential development with ground floor residential development will not adversely affect the neighborhood. There will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. Access to this site is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. The property is located on the southern side of Watertown Street in the village of Nonantum. The MBTA bus 59 runs along Watertown Street, and the surrounding neighborhood includes a mix of businesses such as restaurants, stores, personal service businesses, as well as multifamily residential developments and 2-story homes. The property is located within the Business Use 1 zone and abuts Business 1 zone properties to the west and north, and multi-residence 2 zone to the east. So this is showing the existing conditions. The site, as you can see, is a long, narrow, 11,473 square foot parcel. It currently has a 2-story, 21-foot high, 2-family residence. It's generally a level lot that slopes slightly down from the front to the rear of our property. There is a driveway located from Watertown Street along the front right side of the property, leading to a detached 2-car garage. Behind the garage and the patio to the rear of the lot is an extensive undeveloped rear yard area. So here is the proposed site plan. The project proposes to demolish the existing dwelling, and these are the 4 residential units. It will be a 3-story, 10,735 square foot building overall. There will be ground level garages. There's a driveway from Watertown Street, similar to the existing driveway. There is a area in the central area of the building, which includes a covered carport with a 2nd-story green roof on that. The development is well under the maximum allowable FAR for the zone of 1.5. It has a proposed FAR of 0.95. The proposed development meets all other required rear, side yard, and front yard setbacks for the Business Use 1 zoning district, and provides a slightly larger front yard setback of 8 feet, correcting a non-conforming existing front setback of 6.8 feet. It also slightly enlarges the side yard setbacks compared to the existing home. The existing structure is just around 29 feet, where the proposed height of this structure would be 31.97 feet. By special permit in this zone, developments are allowed to go up to 36 feet. So this is just showing the kind of a zoom in of the green roof carport. It's sort of an interesting feature, unique feature of this development. Just a kind of zoom in showing that there's a sort of wild grass and shrubs proposed with a paver walkway that would be accessible by units 2 and 3 adjacent to the green roof. And just showing the front elevation, how it would appear from Watertown Street, kind of resembles a single family with the door and the dormer in the front there. And this is showing the right elevation of the 1st and 2nd units, showing that side with how the green roof carport would look. And here's the left side elevation showing the entire development from that side, units 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then here is the proposed landscape plan. There's pretty extensive screening proposed along the left property line and rear. Those are the areas that are abutting residential areas. And then there's fencing proposed, privacy screen fencing proposed along the perimeter of the property as well. And this is just showing some of the photos of the area. So this is the existing 2-family residential home on Watertown Street. And this is showing some of the businesses and residences directly across the street. There are businesses and then kind of residential area to the east of the site. So in terms of the interdepartmental review, the Newton Historical Commission has reviewed this and made a note to not preferably preserve the structure. The tree warden has reviewed the landscape plan and just had a recommendation of making sure not to plant trees that are taller than 8 feet, because it's better for the trees to be slightly shorter than that to ensure that they are successful and grow and are able to be maintained. And the Urban Design Commission reviewed the proposal back in January 12th, 2023, and provided feedback to the petitioner at that time. And the engineering department has also reviewed the proposal and provided some input, such as that they would require a snow storage plan and a construction management plan. And they did request a driving turning template plan, which was provided by the petitioner. So just a general overview, this is located in a mixed-use area of the village of Nonantum and on the MBTA bus line. It is not maximizing the total FAR, so the proposed FAR is 0.95 compared to the 1.5 FAR max. Planning does suggest that the pedestrian walkway is better delineated with perhaps using a different style or color of paver, since it wasn't clear from the site plan that would be visually distinctive from the rest of the driveway. And then also just to make sure that there is a long-term maintenance plan of the landscaping proposed for the rooftop garden, just as it's an unusual, kind of an unusual feature that it's innovative, but we want to make sure that it's successful long-term. So that kind of concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Is the petitioner here to add anything to that comprehensive report?
Yes, Mr. Chair, good evening. Lawrence Lee here for the petitioner.
Go ahead.
If I may share my screen, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So good evening again, Lawrence Lee for the petitioner, Rosenberg, Friedman, and Lee, with offices at 246 Walnut Street. I'm going to try to supplement Ms. Sandoval's presentation so as not to repeat anything that she's already covered. Hopefully you can see my screen at the moment.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So just a very quick recap in terms of the neighborhood. Most of you probably know the area. This is a very mixed area of businesses. It transitions as you go from west to east towards Watertown, from businesses down to multifamily homes, and it does segue into the mixed use, which there was a building that was actually approved under special permit by the city council not too long ago to our west. which is a commercial coupled with a residential use, getting to our property, which would be a multi-family residential use, and then further into multi-family uses. We have reduced the number of units down from 5 to 4. We've spent a lot of time with our neighbors. We had multiple meetings. One of the neighbors, I think it's Attorney Harrington represents, and I believe they're in the audience tonight. We have an agreement with our abutters to our rear on Cook Street. And so this project represents the compromises that we've achieved. They had expressed some concerns about drainage, which we've addressed, screening, the bulk of the building, some shadow studies that we've conducted, which I will supplement in the presentation tonight. One of the things that they did ask us is to have not have a parking waiver. So you'll see that there is no parking waiver request. All of the required parking is on site. We're trying to reduce the amount of pavement. So we do have open space. Green roof is a very innovative idea that we think will add to the neighborhood. And the unit sizes without the garages are very modest. So the largest unit being the front unit, it's we try to replicate to a certain degree the front facade of the existing home. So UDC, when we went before them, they very much liked the mimicking of the facade, so that if you're driving by, it looks like a single-family home or a two-family home, and you really wouldn't see the unit behind. So the other units are all under 22 or approximately 2,200 square feet. Here's a zoning map showing the uses. You can see that the transitions from going easterly from the down at the lake towards Watertown Street, towards Watertown, it transitions from a business into multifamily uses. Here's an aerial photograph. These are the businesses that are in the business district. This is our property that's also at the very end of the business district, and it transitions into the multifamily uses as you go east. These are some of the pictures additional to what Ms. Sandoval had covered. Here's a rendering of what it would look like. You can see that the front facade really mimics the current design. Again, UDC thought that it was very appropriate. When they reviewed it, it was at the 5-unit design. And at that point, we did ask for their comment of massing bulk. And they thought even at that point, before the reduction, they felt that the massing and the size of the building was very much in line with the neighborhood. But since then, as Ms. Sandoval had pointed out, we've reduced the bulk of the building, reduced the size. We're actually below the 1.0, which is a by right FAR, so we're below that. Side elevations showing the building. This is the green roof area. This is one of the areas that we also changed through one of the comments from our direct abutter. Previously, in where the cursor is over here to my left and to the right, there were balconies. But now, to reduce noise and disruptions to our neighbors, we're changing this entire area to a green roof. The idea is that we just maintain greenery as opposed to a place where people can just have loud parties and so forth. So I think that we changed that to address that concern. Further elevations that are all in your packet. I'm not going to spend too much time on these. This is the plan that Ms. Sandoval had looked at or shown in her presentation. So if you have any questions, we can go back to it. This is the green roof area that's she showed a zoomed in picture of that. Landscape plan, there is a heavy landscape plan that we're showing here. These are the bigger trees that we've agreed with our neighbors on Cook Street to plant to help screen. There will be a privacy fence, which is going to be 6 feet tall, wood tone, which is what they've requested of us. So those are some of the changes that we've added to the project. Here's the shadow study that we've shown to our neighbors. The neighbor to our to the left, as we're looking at our property, was concerned about the shadows. So here we have 3 images of a December timeframe, which we all know is the darkest of the year. The darkest hour, we've demonstrated that to show her that the shadows do not have a minimal impact at that very limited time frame. Otherwise, the shadows do not impact. And this wide gap was there intended to reduce the impact on her. This, frankly, is actually a less impact than would be a by-right building. Obviously, summertime, we really don't have a shadow issue, so that's the other part of the analysis. This is going to be a green building. This is going to be all electric, no gas, solar-ready roofs, and obviously the green roof. And we can certainly have a maintenance plan, as Ms. Sandoval has suggested, as it relates to landscaping and the green roof. The units are intended to be for sale, so there'll be condominium documents that we anticipate drafting. We can put in conditions in there, as is very customary, part of the condominium fees the unit owners will pay for any common charges. The green roof will be, I believe, a common area benefit. So that's really the quick summary of where we were and where we are today, and happy to take any questions.
Sure, we did get some letters. There's 3 abutters, rear and each side. You've got letters from 2 out of 3?
We have 3 letters, 3 emails that were sent. The folks, I believe, to the rear of our property sent emails to Scott prior to the hearing tonight. But we do have an agreement with 4 direct abutters to the rear of us to address some of these concerns that they've had.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now we'll go to the public for comment. Anybody? Mr. Harrington?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee.
You turn that on? I don't know if it's on.
It's green. Can you hear me?
Get a little closer, thanks.
I represent Mrs. Christina Cardoso of 286 Watertown Street, which she owns the property abutting the easterly lot line of the subject property. And Tatiana Makarian, who is moving into 282 Watertown Street, which is the next property to the east. A majority of men and a majority of women have different views of real property, present company excluded. But I have found that women tend to be more concerned about light, color, play area for children, room size, and room layout. Men are more concerned about the property location, the value, a barbecue pit, and a large TV. Perhaps this is one of the reasons that you get such a variety of comments on the various proposals that come before you. There are a number of problems with this project, some of which the developer has solved, a great number of which have been raised by Mrs. Cardoso. In her house, she has a wall of windows that bring light into the home and is very important to her. And I will say that the developer has made changes that eliminate some of the problems that the original plan created, and that it would be a complete shadow and block off by separating the buildings. We also want to acknowledge that he has made some changes to resolve concerns for the neighborhood about parking, the stormwater management, and the big black fence that he was going to put there has changed, and there's going to be much more vegetation. This project is similar to what in a single-family neighborhood would be called a monster home. And this is one of the concerns. Now, I have three comments about this. The City Council acts as a quasi-judicial body when it acts on land use petitions. That means you're clothed with judicial authority to make findings of fact and decisions related to the petition. A process has grown in Newton where councilors consult with petitioners, proponents, and opponents outside of duly noticed meetings. This activity is not authorized and is similar to having a judge go to lunch or play golf with the attorney or the other side or witnesses or experts for the other side in a case where the judge is hearing the case and it's an appearance of a conflict of interest. And I think that in order to resolve that, the council has a board order 26702, parenthesis 3, that was approved in 2005 as a statement of good practices. And I suggested in this particular case, and that's because I've been following it, I don't go anywhere else on anything else, but in this particular case, these requirements have not been followed. And I suggest to the chair that in that case, that those who have participated in these discussions should recuse themselves from this vote. Now, to try and get to the meat of this, a first floor business use with a residence above has been the foundation for an economic middle class for almost 2,000 years. I think we can trace it back to Roman times. We certainly know that in England 1,000 years ago, that it was a very popular way of living, and it gave rise to the middle class. What we're seeing here is a petition that is going to eliminate all of that heritage, at least on this particular lot. This lot is zoned for business use on the first floor and residential use on the second floor. As has been pointed out, the lot beside it, Mrs. Cardozo's lot, is in a two-family zone. So there is a transition. The proposal requests a change, eliminating the business use, establishing a residential use, using commercial density standards to establish the residential use, and build a building twice the size that could be built on a residentially zoned lot. Now, if you're going to change the zone, change the zone. If you're going to change the use to make this a residential lot, then we should change the zone on the lot to make it a residential lot, and we should try and see that the building conforms to the neighborhood standards for residential, all residential use. That is not being done here. It's another example of driving working class families out of the neighborhood while claiming to support their housing needs. This is not providing housing for working class people. Another problem that we have is the criteria for financial considerations. In any discussion of these projects that come before you, there is often talk about the developer's needs in relation to the cost of the project. But there is no discussion about the profit from the project. And it's generally not allowed because it's not a consideration that
It's not generally not allowed, it's not allowed.
It is.
Something we never look at. It's not in our purview to look at count the profit from.
I thank you for that clarification, Mr. Chairman, because it is that issue that is part of the problem. If you're going to discuss the cost of a project and talk to the developer about his need to build bigger buildings because of the cost, some consideration has to be given to the volume of the profit or the amount of the profit. Why are we going to destroy a neighborhood, wipe out working class families? This is one of the oldest working class neighborhoods in our city. And it is slowly being gentrified. And
Mr. Harrington, first of all, let me tell you that I usually give 2 minutes, and I've given you a ton of leeway because I have much respect for you. But you are litigating larger macro issues for that neighborhood in this city, which I don't want to do tonight. This isn't a debate, and I want you to stick to this petition. If you want to speak to it, speak to that. And I understand that the statements you're making have to do with this, but I think you're getting a little broader, and I would like you to stick to this petition specifically.
It is this petition that is an example of the problem that we have with making decisions about zoning in the city of Newton. And I have just another sentence or two, but
Go ahead, finish up.
the practice seems to create a double standard that diminishes the value of concerns about neighborhood preservation. And I suggest to you that the subject that I've just discussed should be reviewed, and you have to give some thought to incorporating that into your decision. Now, the reason I raise these questions is that Mrs. Cardoso has asked me to. She is concerned about not only her own home, she's concerned about the neighborhood. As part of her work in trying to get things resolved, she got a lot of her neighbors' problems resolved. She didn't get her problems resolved, and so I'm here to speak about her problems, and they relate to the changing of the neighborhood and building a monster home next to her house using commercial standards to convert it all into residential. And it's technically a change of zone, and without the use of the proper procedure and without the adoption of the protections afforded people who live in a residential neighborhood. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington.
Oh, wait, Mr. Chairman, I did have one thing here.
Did you make reference that there are certain counselors that should recuse themselves because they had discussions with the developer? Is that what you alluded to?
Yes, I did. I have here a copy of the board order. I made a number of copies. I didn't realize there'd only be 3 of you here. And I didn't know that Councilor Lucas was going to wear a pink shirt, so I put it on pink paper. Not intended to.
So, who has had inappropriate discussions with the developer? Because one of the things that we do on this committee when projects are evolving and going back and forth is it is valuable for the counselors from the ward to be involved, to represent not only the city, but the constituents in what they're looking at. I know it's quasi-judicial. There are some that say we shouldn't have a discussion with anybody that's not within the public hearing. I don't think that's super productive, but you can give me your opinion.
I don't disagree with you that it's not super productive. And I've been espousing this for 40 or 50 years, so it's not new to me. And I can refer you to Alderman Susan Basham, who, when she was chairman of the Land Use Committee, did not have any outside discussions. Everything was within committee. And I realize it's a difficult problem for counselors, someone who holds elective office, to it's a really difficult problem for the elected officials to explain to their constituents that they have a position that may prohibit them from having private conversations. And I just wanted to pass on that information. I think it's a difficult problem. And since the Supreme Court has now decided that they're going to have some rules, I thought that it would be an appropriate time to bring it up again. I brought it up before. I'm not sure if I brought it up while you've been chairing the committee, but I've been here at other times on other occasions and presented the same problem.
Okay, thank you.
It's not meant to, I am not casting stones at anybody. I'm presenting a problem that is sometimes not a problem and sometimes can be perceived to be a very big problem. But it's an issue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else in the public on Zoom or here, anybody else wish to make a statement?
Yes.
Right, okay, state your name and address.
Sente. I'm one of the architects on 282 and also personal friends with Christiana on 290. And I've been working with Lawrence too during this process in changing the project. We came a long way. I just have a few considerations just to close it off on the case from our side. Not to mention about the commercial use instead of the residential, but more on the 3 stories and also about the height. One of the things that we wanted since the beginning was smaller units, and then we thought maybe when we came from 5 to 4, the units were gonna keep kind of the same size, and it wasn't, ended up being bigger units. And the question is, do we really need a 3rd floor there just to have more bedrooms? Or that could be smaller, like we proposed it before, at least 3 feet less on both sides to have more an openness and more of that green roof. I thought that would give us more sunlight as well. And it would make just a good compromise in having the 3rd floor if it was smaller. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Terry Sorrow.
Thank you. I don't know what to say. I do not support this project, this development, for a lot of reasons, but we did have a lot of neighborhood meetings, and I think a lot of the drainage, and especially on Cook Street here, with the neighbor abutting it, with the trash and stuff, but there's, in my opinion, it's still too large. And I don't know what else to say. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sorrow. Anybody else on Zoom from the public? Okay. So, Mr. Lee, when this was changed from 5 units to 4 units, the average size of the units went up? Yes? How much?
I don't know off the top of my head how much bigger. They're slightly bigger, but I think it is noted that the FAR of the building is below a by right FAR. So when we're talking about the bulk and size of the building, the by right FAR is 1.0, which would be over 11,000 and a half square feet approximately.
Right, we understand that FAR is based on a commercial building, correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. And the house to the right that's in a residential zone, what zone is that?
That's an MR1, I believe.
And what's the FAR in that zone?
If you follow, off the top of my head, if you follow the by right FAR, it is a sliding scale. So I really, there's a range. So I think you can go as high as 0.48 or 0.50 if you follow new lot setbacks, but I have not analyzed it.
Okay, so for the lot next door, the FAR is half of what this one is. And the reason why it's this large is because you're taking advantage of a commercial zone and applying it to a residential property. I mean, we've been through this before. This happens all the time. So if you talk about precedent, we do this all the time. But it's just, I'm just pointing it out to everybody. I'm in agreement with Mr. Harrington that that's a loophole that's taken advantage of quite often. And it's 3 stories. On the first floor is the garage. Second floor is second floor, the first floor of living, and the third floor the bedrooms. Is that correct?
Let me just take a quick look here.
Or is the kitchen and family room on the first floor next to the garage? And then you've got 2 more stories up.
So it depends on the unit you're looking at. So they're not all the same. So for example, there's some living space, a kitchen area for the front unit. There's living space in the garage on the second unit. The back unit, by way of example, there's just some, there's a mud room and a bathroom, and then you have to go right upstairs to the second floor. So they do vary in sizes.
Okay. Right, so some of them, that third story is where the only bedrooms are.
Second and third.
There are bedrooms on the second and third?
Let's take a quick peek here. I just want to make sure it's accurate. That is correct. Second and third floors.
Okay. Are those third floors half stories?
No, it's considered a full story.
It's a full story. Okay.
And I think by way of sort of looking at it, I never look at one dimension as a way to looking at a project. Here, the height of the building is about 30, just a hair under 32 feet. The by right height is 24 with a special permit height of 36. So we're sort of in between that.
Okay. Is there anybody on the committee that wishes to chime in? Councilor Greenberg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This petitioner has worked very hard with the neighborhood on this project for many, many months and have had many meetings with the neighbors. They addressed the concerns of the rear butters, and we got letters about that. I believe he addressed a majority of the concerns from the resident to the left of the project, not 100%, but did address most of them. I believe projects like this are about compromise and balance. It may not be perfect. It may not be exactly what the neighbors want. It may not be exactly what I wanted. I would have preferred more units that were smaller, that would have provided more attainable housing for the neighborhood. They went from 5 to 4 in order to satisfy the worry of some of the neighbors that there were too many units on this property. So I believe the petitioner worked very hard at addressing everyone's concerns on in a balanced way. It's a green building, which I really, really like. It's a green roof, which is something that we should be excited about having in our neighborhood. I think the front unit especially fits into the neighborhood, as planning had mentioned. The design and look of the home is appropriate for the streetscape. So on whole, I find this project to be appropriate for at the village, right at the village edge, and I think fits in, although it doesn't make everyone happy. I think I approve it, and I will close the public hearing and move for approval when you're ready.
Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to remind folks on the committee that we did approve a similar project next door to it at 296 Watertown Street early this year. And that particular project You were talking about the FAR. The FAR for this project in front of us is 0.95, but next door, it's a significantly bigger project that is 3 stories. The FAR is 1.25. So this project is smaller. And I believe with this project, it doesn't require any parking waivers. The design was, they made a good attempt to not have a giant 3-story wall for the folks who live to the left who are here tonight, that when they look at it, they can see some of the skies, some of the sun, and the shadows won't be as bad due to the design of the building. I just want to say that, just what we've set a precedent, sort of, for this neighborhood. What I like about this project is that there's little zoning relief needed. I'm just looking at the planning memo, and it's just to allow ground floor residential, to allow 3 stories, to allow a building greater than 24 feet in height. Other than that, they're not asking for a waiver for anything. So they are following all of our rules. They just need our permission to allow this type of building. We've seen other projects come before land use, and it's just like a shopping list of relief that is needed to make it viable. This one is not that particular case. I do have a question for Mr. Lee, and that is in the front of the building there is a tree. And I just want to confirm you don't have any plans to petition the city to remove that tree, even though it's on public property.
We previously did, and we withdrew that petition. So one of the earlier iterations of the project was to put the driveway on that side of the property so as to keep it further away from our residential neighbors. But we were denied that permit, and I think there was going to be, there's not enough room anyway, so that's why we had to put the driveway to where we are currently.
Okay, good. And I guess other than that, that's all I have. So like Councilor Greenberg, I'll be voting in the affirmative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lucas. I agree with all those points. Okay, anybody else on the committee? I see none. We have a motion to close. You come on up.
My name is Cristiniana Cardoso, and I live in 286 Watertown Street. I have a lawyer because my English is not too good. But I'll try to explain what's the problem with this project, in particular in my side. So I have 286 Watertown Street and 282 Watertown Street. In the both cases, I build like I still build in 2 units in 282, and I just built 286 a year ago. And I use the residential rights. And in this case, when he told about 296 Watertown Street, over there it was business. The first floor it was business, the second floor it was like 2 units. In front of 296 Watertown Street, we have one walk across. So over there in front of don't have any park. So I don't know how this one happen in the future if the business there and 2 units, because they waive 7 parks over there. And 290, the problem with the layout, it's the layout of the land. It's too narrow and too long. So when I built my house, I had the problem with the park. I cannot build a garage in the back because I don't have enough space. So I have 2 lots together, close to 90, and I have double size of this lot. And I built like 4 units, and I have the backyard. The backyard, we cannot build because over there have the problem with the water. I cannot build a garage if I want to get like a special permit. And for me, it's not fair use the business right to put 4 units, big units there. When I tried to work with Lawrence, I was happy when he changed for 4, because I'm a developer too. I build houses, I make money, this is my business. And so I know about the profit, I know about the problems, but in this particular case, the layout is very long, so I'm gonna have a big wall in the whole 100% of my property. And I just invest a lot of money to build 4 houses. And when I had like the meeting with all the people, Maria told me, Lawrence asked, Maria, can you tell her what the City Hall wants? And she said, the City Hall wants small houses. We don't need big houses anymore. And after that, I call her and ask her, what's the big house? What's the small house? Because the size, it depends of the how is big for you, how is it small.
How many units did you build next to this?
2. I have double size of the lot.
And then another 3 units?
2 and 2.
2 and 2, 4 units? I thought you said 5.
Yes, in the double lot, 282 and 286. I have 2 units, and I'm building 2 units in 282. I was happy with this project because I have a lot of land in the back. I could get one special permit and build 4 houses in the back now, because now I have to say, oh, this guy did this one, I can get one lawyer, good special permit, and build 4 houses in my back.
You just mentioned that you have a water issue in the back there?
Yes, now...
That's separate from getting a special permit.
Yes, because if you see this part of the...
I'd rather not talk about your property. Let's stick to this one, okay? I'm sorry I asked that question. You've given me enough already.
It's the same problem, because over there in the back, if you see the houses built long time ago just in front of the street, because the back area have problem with the water. So we need to invest a lot of drains, stuff like that. Maybe they don't do basement because we have like problem of water. I'm worried about the problem with the rain. Now we have this year is the hot year in the planet. And so it's more rain and all these buildings close to me. And so I have a lot of concern. But the point is, I try to talk to him, just get 4 units smaller, a little less. I ask him 3 feet less each side, just to get a little more space, more breathe, more open. Because I don't want to talk about my particular problem, because I have depression in the winter time. I spend a lot of money to put the windows, and now I see like a big building very close to my property with the same size of the lot. I'm sorry, because I'm very emotional, and my English is not good.
Is your house the contemporary one to the left, or is it on the other side?
The right side. If you, yes.
Is it the contemporary that's brown and?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm building the next one too. So I'm gonna do like a condominium with 4 units with a plant backyards, like.
Okay.
Because I believe it's better we think about the grass, the green. And
all right.
This is just the point. I try to talk to Lee, I try to finish this one, and I just ask him, can you please just a little less? Okay, I'm happy with 4 units. It's not fair, because I just built my house. I cannot do another project. But like, can you just reduce a little bit and put some trees? This was I tried. And he said not. And 4 units, it's the same size of 5, because he decreased just 400 square feet. So it's not like, if you took care of 1 unit, that's okay, 4 units. But no, they took care of 5 units, but put 4 units with almost the same size.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's all right. Mr. Lee, do you have anything you want to add, or?
Yeah, so I wanted to reiterate that we worked with Christina quite a bit. Most of the changes that we've made to this project really are catered to her. The 35+ foot gap that is there now between the 2 two buildings, if you will, but it is one building, was created solely to address her concern. We produced a solar study for the purpose of showing her that that gap gives her the sunlight and it minimizes the impact for her. I also indicated to her that when she requested the landscaping screening, she mentioned about shadows and so forth, that if we were planting trees along the border, which oftentimes neighbors do for landscaping and screening, trees create shadows too. And particularly you have taller trees, evergreens that are there purely for, well, not purely, but a lot of times used for screening purposes. Those also create shadows. But we were happy to accommodate any type of landscaping in and around the property. We created a green roof, eliminated balconies, created a wide gap, all to address her concern. So we really went as far as we could to address a lot of her concerns. All of those meetings we've had, many of our neighbors around us participated. It's a balancing act. We can't, I think most of the changes were catered towards Christiana. Our folks and neighbors to the rear on Cook Street, we addressed all of their concerns, hence their letters of support that you received. So I think this project represents a good balancing act of everyone's interests. From a developer standpoint, from our neighbor standpoint, we believe this is a very well thought out, compromised project.
Thank you very much. Anything else from the councilors? We have a motion to close the public hearing by Councilor Greenberg. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? The public hearing is closed. And we have a motion to approve from Councilor Greenberg. Can we take a look at a council order? Ms. Sandoval?
Yes, can you see the findings here?
You need to blow it. There you go.
Okay. So findings, number one, the specific site is an appropriate location for the proposed 4-unit residential development, which includes ground floor residential and 3 stories in a BU1 district. The scale and design of the proposed development is appropriate for the location and surrounding neighborhood, which has a mix of businesses and residences, including restaurants, stores, personal service businesses, multifamily residential developments, and 2-story homes. 2, the proposed 4 units in a 3-story building will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the maximum height of the building is similar to what currently exists on the site. The building includes varying heights and a 2nd-story green roof, which helps to reduce the overall visual mass of the structure. Number 3, the proposed units in one building located in a walkable neighborhood will not create a nuisance or hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. And 4, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. Shall I go to the conditions?
Yes, please.
So for the conditions, I have the standard plan condition, standard building permit condition, standard pest control, and then noting the sustainability features, including solar panel ready roof, EV ready, and bicycle storage, and all electric. We also have the construction management plan, private waste disposal, landscape maintenance, including the green roof, standard final inspection, and certificate of occupancy condition.
Okay. We have a motion to approve. Mr. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilor Bowman?
Aye.
Councilor Downs?
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg.
Aye.
Counselor Kelly.
Aye.
Counselor Laredo. Counselor Lipoff.
Aye.
Counselor Lucas.
Aye.
Counselor Markowitz.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last item of the night, 287-23, parens B. Washington Place Owner LLC requests to amend condition number 3 of special permit 179-19 at 839 853 Washington Street. And who do we have to present from planning?
This is Elisa Sandoval.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is petition number 287-23 at 839 to 853 Washington Street. This development is also known as Trio. So the committee last heard this petition on September 19, 2023, and at that time decided to recommend increasing the parking waiver and to allow the non-accessory parking in the underutilized parking garage at Trio. Therefore amending special permit number 9617. There was another proposed change regarding the existing restriction of formula businesses, otherwise known as chains. The committee had some concern about redefining the formula business, which could allow large national chains. So the item was held for further work. Just a little background on that. The original council order in 9617 prohibited the petitioner from leasing to banks, and there was a subsequent amendment, Council Order 17919, in 2019, which allowed one bank but placed restrictions on the formula, or otherwise known as chain businesses, within 10,000 square feet of the ground floor space of Trio. So the petitioner here is here with the proposed change, which redefines the definition of formula business to give them a bit more latitude on the types of businesses that they can lease to, but is still largely restrictive of national chains. So when reviewing this request, the council should consider the standard special permit criteria, including the specific site as an appropriate location for the amendment to Council Order 17919, the site due to the amendment to Council Order 17919 as developed and operated will not adversely affect the neighborhood. There will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because of the amendment to Council Order 17919. And access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. So the use change, as I mentioned, is to modify the definition of formula business as it relates to condition 3 of special order 17919. So the proposed change would adjust the definition of formula business to 24 businesses or more worldwide. And this is the change from the existing, which is to is the definition of 9 or more worldwide. So I think planning does believe that this largely addresses the concern regarding allowing businesses that are large national chains but might have fewer locations in Massachusetts. So having it be worldwide kind of addresses that that concern. And in general, this will add the flexibility for the commercial property owner to lease to a wider variety of tenants, and planning is supportive of the change in definition as it will still help to provide a vibrant commercial atmosphere in Newtonville. So that is all I have for now.
So when you say adjust the definition of the formula businesses to having 24 businesses or more, if they have 24 or more, they would not be allowed. Is that correct?
If they have,
it has to be under 24. It has to be under, right?
It has to be under 24. Yes.
Okay. And before we had 9. Was that
before we had 9? Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So and they've reduced that from what was the ask before?
The ask before was to, it was 424 still, but it was for Massachusetts locations only. So, so it was 24 or more locations in Massachusetts, because the idea was to allow some of the larger, like, growing regional chains, such as, for instance, you know, different chains that are start here and they're just kind of growing in the Boston area or in Massachusetts. So allowing those to be able to locate. But, you know, the concern was that this might allow a chain such as, for instance, an IHOP, which might have fewer locations in Massachusetts, but more nationwide, that would fall, you know, into this. They would potentially be able
But if
to locate.
nationwide they had 60 locations,
Nationwide, they'd have-
they couldn't
exactly.
locate here.
Well, they couldn't locate here under the new proposal, which is 24 or more.
Right, right. So if you have a, you know, if you have a, I mean, they have Chipotle now, don't they?
No, not Trio.
Not Trio, that's, really?
Mr. Chair, may I jump in?
Where's Trio? Where's Chipotle?
Mr. Chair, this is Damian Jones.
Yes, go ahead. Is Chipotle in your building?
Yeah, Chipotle is one of our tenants, Mr.
Oh,
Chair.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It is,
no
okay.
problem.
But not, okay.
And just to clarify, because I think it was a fruitful discussion the last time we were here, there was a member of the community, we requested, as Ms. Sandoval points out, 24 stores, but we did it specific to Massachusetts. And as she points out, what was identified to us in that distinction was of including Massachusetts was locations like IHOP, like Buffalo Wild Wings would have been allowed as tenants at Trio, which was not our intent. What we were trying to do was allow for flexibility for tenants like Tate, who met that 24 store requirement, to be allowed as part of our location, which is why we went back and adjusted it so that it would read nationwide, and stores like IHOP and Buffalo Wild Wings would no longer be allowed without us coming back to the
Right, so if you've got...
that was our hope and a compromise that was brought to our attention by the community.
Yeah, because I mean, you go, and Chipotle has more than 24 worldwide, correct? So you're out of compliance with them?
No, we have, I believe it's 10,000 square feet has to meet this requirement, excluding the barn. So we have to maintain 10,000 square feet at all times, Mr. Chair. So we are allowed certain tenants, but there are others we would not be allowed. And Chipotle at the time, you know, was outside of that 10,000 square feet.
Okay, so if it's below the 10,000 square feet, it doesn't...
Then we would have to, right, then we would have to meet these new requirements.
Okay. All right, well, that is more restrictive, I guess, and you're willing to live within this. Okay. Anybody have any questions? I see Meg Ward. Unmute.
Okay. Yeah, more of a comment than a question. Quite frankly, I'm disgusted at the fact that yet again, we're hearing another amendment request from our development. This developer continues to prove to us that he's unreliable and he can't keep his promises. We have a special permit process for a reason, and he's shown no interest in honoring his commitments in this process. Nor has he shown any interest or care to work with the communities and abutters in his projects over the last few years. It's become obvious that Mr. Corp hedged his business at Mark Development, so much so that he overpaid for the ore block, which is where Trio resides now, by over double the market value. Of course, back then he had a lot of cash flowing in. The problem is now is with hedging that you take on risk. And clearly Mr. Corp is a gambling man and he's made some bad business moves. However, it's not the business of the city to mitigate his losses and profit. if he actually had been conducting business in Newton with humility and fairness, I probably wouldn't feel so compelled to speak tonight, but unfortunately that hasn't been the case. I might remind the counselors, and some of them, I guess, weren't even here when the project proposal came forward, but he pulled a double strip maneuver to screw over the abutters. And if we look now, he's not even willing to allow the West Newton community to use the parking lot behind Santander Bank. So in closing it, I asked the question, what positive contributions has Mark Development made to the community, to the cities thus far? What positive contributions have happened? We haven't seen anything. And it sure as hell ain't Trio, with all of its broken promises, lack of parking, and let's be honest, exorbitant rents. Last week in our election, we saw the people of Newton send a message that they're tired of our elected officials making decisions in the best interest of developers and not in the interest of village communities. So I feel it's time for the city to reevaluate its relationship with developers, particularly certain ones. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I will not respond. We do not have enough time. So we'll just leave it at that. Thank you for your comments. I will take one thing that was said there. There is nothing out of the norm, nothing unusual for a developer over time when we have pandemics, when we have inflation, interest rates, and just changes in the market to come forward and ask for amendments. We approve them or we deny them based on their reasonableness. We do want our commercial spaces to flourish. That is direct tax benefit for our businesses to flourish. We do not want empty spaces in this city, and that's the only thing I'll respond to there. Councilor Markowitz.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question. There's a Chipotle in there?
Yes, there is.
How did I miss that?
Because you don't eat burritos.
No, I actually do.
Yeah, it's to the left, to the right of CVS.
Okay, fine.
Yeah,
I hear it. I know it's there. I believe you and Damien. Okay, I'm just. How does so there's more than 24 Chipotle, so just go back over that 10,000 square foot thing. I guess I didn't understand that.
I'm a little confused too. Ominous Mr. Shaviano in your walk-in closet.
I won't take offense to that. So when we made the change to allow for a single bank, as Ms. Sandoval pointed out, we also agreed that 10,000 square feet would be preserved for small retail. And so we have to meet certain requirements as to what defines small retail in the sense of non-formulaic retail. And so Chipotle would not have met the 10,000 square foot requirement at the time. So we have 40,000 square feet. They fall in to a separate bucket.
How big is Chipotle, Damien?
Chipotle, as far as stores, they have 69 in Massachusetts.
In terms of square foot they're occupying?
In terms of square footage, they occupy 2,100 square feet.
Okay.
So are they part of a 10,000?
So in other words, if you're under 10,000 square feet, you can be as big as, if you could get an IHOP under 10,000 square feet, you could do it.
10,000, I'm sorry, Councilor, in the aggregate, it's not per individual tenant. So before we could lease to anyone other than a bank, we were precluded from a bank. In exchange for asking for the bank, we said we would set aside 10,000 square feet. It could be, 2, 3, 4, it could be one tenant. But at a minimum, 10,000 square feet have to be set aside at all times for non-formulaic retailers.
And so all the rest is formulaic?
It can be, but it doesn't have, right? It can be open to anyone.
So, but still, if Chipotle is in there within the 10,000, it is a formulaic business by definition.
And it would not count for the 10,000 square feet we need to provide.
Catherine
For
Adams,
non-formula?
on behalf of Mark Development, can I chime in?
Yeah, we're not getting this.
I see some confusion. I just want to frame it in a different way. Trio reserves 10,000 square feet for non-formula retail businesses. The rest of the development, irrespective of what their tenant space is, can be formula retail. So it could be a 5,000 square foot tenant space. It could be a 20,000 square foot tenant space. The 10,000 square foot just carves off a portion of the Trio development and reserves that for non-formula retail. But the definition really has nothing to do with necessarily the size of the tenant space that we're talking about.
Chipotle.
I got that part. Hold on, Chair. I'm still not getting this. Maybe this is too late. It's been a long day, whatever, with all the zoning stuff going on. I'm sorry, Ms. Adams. So the 10,000 square feet has non-formulaic businesses within it, or is required to have non-formulaic business. So how does Chipotle fit inside that? Is Chipotle inside the 10,000 square feet?
Nope. Just like CVS, it's not in that 10,000 square feet.
Okay, so how did it qualify then if it's not in? Because it is a formulaic business, so everything outside that 10,000 square feet can be formulaic.
Correct.
But they have 16. But they have 69 locations, so they were over the 9. So how did they get in there?
Because they're in the box. There's two buckets. Think about it like housing, Councilor Markowitz. We have affordable housing and you have market rate housing. There's the two buckets. We have formula retail and we have non-formulaic retail. They fell in the other bucket of non-formula.
But they are formula.
I'm sorry, in formula retail. So they're in the second bucket where what we're asking for is to expand the definition of the other bucket from 9 to 24.
Right, but how did they get in if they were not, they were above 9? They shouldn't have been in there.
They were in a bucket that they could be as big as they want, Mr. Chavez?
Correct. That's correct.
So there's one bucket where they can be as big as they want, and the 10,000 has to be below.
Correct.
Okay, all right, I think I get it now.
All right, thank you. I think it's a decent solution now that I understand.
And I'll also point out, for what it's worth, is we also committed, because the barn was already in at the time, the 10,000 square feet does not get credit for the barn, which is 8,500. So of the 40,000 square feet, 18,500 square feet fall within the non-formulaic retail definition, or almost 50% of the square footage. So I think it's a testament to the type of tenancy we've been successful in.
Gotcha. Okay, Ms. Belville.
Yeah, my head's swimming on this too. Just a couple questions. So the 10,000 square feet, what does that represent in terms of percentage of square feet?
25%, Ms. Belville.
Okay, so the request is that 25% or the 10,000 square feet be redefined as far as what would qualify for that.
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm just making sure I'm following. And so the request is to increase the scope of who would qualify for that 25%. Is that right?
Yes.
So that's I'm sorry to jump in just to help because I'm still processing. So that's actually a pretty small amount of space we're talking about here then.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I'm sorry, Chris.
No, go ahead. Keep going. I think I'm finally, like, it's coming together.
Yeah. So right now, I'm going to take the barn out of it because I think there was some kind of side deal with the barn. But right now, are there any local independent retailers at Trio?
Yes.
And what would that be?
So Mita, by way of example, is a local independent retailer of 5,000 square feet. By way of example, we just signed a lease with Cookie Monster, who will be taking 1,000 square feet. They would also fall under independent local. And if you're not including the barn, but you're well over 50% of the space.
Yeah, not including the bar, but Mita, they're a local chain though, right? I'm more thinking
No,
like.
they're not a chain. It's Belleville. They're far from a chain.
He's
Oh,
got
they
one.
have-
He's
I'm
got
sorry.
one other restaurant in the south end.
I'll
that's
just,
it.
yeah, I'm sorry, I used the wrong, they're not a single entity, local independent. That's all I'm asking. They do have other restaurants. Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am not confused with the 10,000 square feet, Mr. Chaviano, so don't worry about that. But I do have a statement. I just wanted something I was doing my research on this particular amendment to the special permit, and I went back and I saw the 2019 planning memo, June 21st, 2019. In it, planning writes, the planning department is supportive of this effort. Then in September 15th, early this year, planning wrote another memo that we heard, and they also write, planning is unconcerned with the proposed change. And then for the memo for tonight's meeting, November 9th, the planning memo says, planning has no concerns with the revised definition. It's not necessarily a question for planning, but it's just like, what would concern the planning department? I mean, you don't really need to answer that, but it was a question I had for Director Heath that I forgot to write to him in an email. I'll send that to him, I guess, tomorrow. But it's just everything that comes through, it's always, we are not concerned. And clearly, small businesses, local small businesses are what people like in Newton. So I just want to get that out there. But going on to this particular amendment, going from 9 to 24, does it achieve the same thing that we do not want to see, and that is chains and national businesses? I think we can achieve that, not having chains and national businesses going from 9 to 24. When you were here earlier this year, it was 24 locations in Massachusetts. That did concern me. And I did have questions about that. But you have since then amended the amendment to 9 to 24 worldwide. And I think we can still achieve the same thing with 9 and give Mark Development greater flexibility. I do have a question concerning the 10,000 square feet that are available right now. And one of your commercial tenants, Mr. Chaviano, is Clover Food Lab. As folks know, if they read the Boston Globe, Clover Food Lab is filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Just wondering, is Clover Food Lab staying, or are they going to shut down their operation, if you know?
Councilor Lucas, we don't know at this time. I will say our understanding is it is one of their better performing stores in their portfolio. So we've been told they would like to try and stay, but we have not heard from them directly.
Okay, thank you. And of the 10,000 square feet that are for non-formulas, how many, or of the 10,000, how much is occupied?
All of it. We're fully leased. So we're not, again, we spoke about this last time, I apologize. Right now, this is not dealing with a tenant that we are trying to bring to you, which is why, there's no specifics around tenancy. We're fully leased at our property. This is what we're sensing as a market issue. And so we want to be prepared for it. But we are fully leased right now at Trio, to your point, not knowing the status of where Clover will end up.
Okay, I got it. So you're just really planning for the future, not so much right now. In case of one of your non-formulas do leave, you have greater flexibility to get a commercial tenant. Does that sound right?
That's correct.
All right, thank you. All right.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Do I have any other comments? Do I have a motion? Councilor Lucas?
Oh, I thought there would be more comments, but motion to close public hearing and motion to approve.
Motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve. Can we take a look at a council order?
Yes, hold on a second. Okay, so Can you see my screen okay? Hold on a second.
Yes.
All right. See, number one, the site is the specific site is an appropriate location for the amendment to Council Order 179-19, allowing a greater number of business types to locate at Trio, given the site is located within a village center containing a variety of uses. 2, the amendment to Council Order 179-19 will not adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood and will help to foster a vibrant commercial center with appropriately scaled businesses. 3, the amendment to Council Order 179-19 will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. 4, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. 5, the dedication of 10,000 square feet within the ground floor of the development to non-formula retail, restaurant, or personal service uses helps to create a more vibrant, diversified mix of uses. Businesses, allowing small chain businesses fewer than 24 locations worldwide within the ground floor will provide more flexibility to lease these spaces and create a dynamic mix of businesses, helping to provide for an active streetscape. The council finds that dedicating space to such uses will support the village atmosphere of Newtonville. So for conditions, it includes defining the formula businesses as 24 or more locations worldwide, and then a standard council order recording condition.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair, I have a quick question before.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think I know the answer to this, but Attorney Temple, by us calling this formula definition of 24 or less than 24, we are not affecting anything else that might some other permit be called a formula business, are we?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I follow the question, Counselor.
We're using.
I understand. I think Councilor Markowitz is asking if perhaps we've done this in other special permits and if it would impact those. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I'm just concerned that.
Yeah, to answer the question, maybe Northland had a condition similar to this, but it would not impact that. And beyond potentially Northland, we rarely use this condition.
Right, but the question is I'm gonna use the term now, a reserved word. We are not causing formula business to be like there's a hard definition for that applies across the board now. This is unique and specific to this permit. That's really the question.
Absolutely.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Councillor Bowman?
Aye.
Councillor Downs?
Aye.
Councillor Greenberg?
Aye.
Councillor Kelly?
Aye.
Councillor Laredo? Councillor Lipoff?
Aye.
Councillor Lucas?
Aye.
Councillor Markowitz?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We are done with our business, ladies and gentlemen. I think it is around 9:08, which isn't bad. Everybody have a good night.